Two boys, only 5 years old, had been living in complete silence for 3 years. No doctor could explain why the sons of millionaire Robert Anderson simply refused to speak. But when a young cleaning lady entered the mansion, something impossible happened. On her first day of work, the children's first words came out of their mouths. What was so special about this simple woman that all the money in the world couldn't provide? The truth behind this mystery will leave you speechless. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching us from. The 5,000 square meter mansion, with its Olympic-sized pool and impeccable gardens, hid a father's greatest nightmare. At 35, Robert Anderson had built an empire in the real estate sector. His towers generated millions monthly, but all that money couldn't buy what he most desired: to hear his children's voices. Luke and Liam, identical twins of only 5 years, lived like small ghosts through the marble corridors of the house. 3 years and 2 months ago, they witnessed something no child should ever see. Their mother, Isabella, slipped on the wet marble stairs while going down to get them from their room. The sound of her body falling, the blood spreading across the white floor, her lifeless eyes staring directly at them. All of this was forever etched in their young minds. Since that day, not a word, not a whisper, not even an audible cry. Robert spent a fortune trying to get his sons' voices back. Dr. Thomas Collins, the country's most renowned child psychiatrist, visited the house 3 times a week. American therapists came monthly for specialized sessions. Neurologists performed every possible test. The diagnosis was always the same: severe psychological trauma with extreme selective mutism. The children communicated only through basic gestures. They pointed to food when they were hungry, shook their heads for yes or no, but their voices remained trapped somewhere deep and inaccessible. Robert came home every night hoping to hear a daddy, a hi, or any sound that would indicate his sons were returning to him. But the silence was deafening. The house, once full of laughter and games, now seemed like a museum. The employees spoke in whispers. Even footsteps were carefully muffled so as not to disturb the melancholic atmosphere that had settled in. Robert was losing hope when his secretary, Martha, suggested hiring a new cleaning lady. The old one had quit, saying she couldn't stand the sadness of the house. That's how the name Sarah Johnson came to him. A 28-year-old widow with impeccable references from working in other homes. Robert didn't even interview her personally. He was too busy trying to save his company from a financial crisis while dealing with the constant guilt of not being able to help his own children. That Tuesday morning, Robert left early for an important meeting. Luke and Liam ate breakfast in silence, as always. Sitting at the mahogany kitchen table, their nannies, experienced and loving women, tried to talk to them but received only empty stares in response. The children would spend another day playing silently in their room, putting together puzzles or drawing meaningless figures. It was a day like any other in the Anderson mansion, a day where silence reigned supreme and hope seemed increasingly distant. But at 9 a.m., when Sarah Johnson crossed the golden gate of the property, carrying only a small bag of cleaning supplies and a heart full of her own scars, she had no idea she was about to break 3 years of silence with just her presence. The twins also didn't know that this would be the morning their voices would finally find their way back home. Sarah Johnson stopped in front of the imposing gate, adjusted her simple uniform, and took a deep breath. At 28, her eyes carried the deep mark of someone who knew the intimate pain of loss. 2 years ago, a car accident had stolen not only her beloved husband, but also the baby girl growing in her womb, a girl she had already chosen to name Hope. Since then, Sarah had survived by working as a cleaning lady in the homes of wealthy families. It was honest work that kept her busy enough not to sink completely into depression, but lonely enough for her to process her pain in silence. The hospital and funeral debts still weighed on her shoulders, but she never complained. Working amidst other people's luxury didn't bother her. In fact, She preferred it to the suffocating loneliness of her small apartment. Martha, Robert's secretary, greeted her at the side entrance of the mansion. An efficient and somewhat serious middle-aged woman, she quickly explained the rules of the house. "Sarah, this is a special residence," she began. "Mr. Anderson has 2 twin sons, Luke and Liam. They went through a trauma a few years ago and don't speak at all. It's important that you keep the house quiet and avoid making unnecessary noise. The children are very sensitive." Sarah nodded, understanding immediately. She herself knew the weight of silence. She had spent months unable to pronounce her dead husband's name. "Are they in good health? Do they play normally?" Sarah asked with genuine concern. "Physically, they are perfect, but emotionally," Martha sighed. "They're like little ghosts, very polite, very quiet, but it's as if a part of them died, along with their mother." Sarah's heart sank. She knew that feeling well. Martha led her through the mansion's rooms, explaining the cleaning routine. The living room with a double-height ceiling, the library with thousands of books, the office with a garden view, the gourmet kitchen that looked more like a restaurant. Everything was impeccable, luxurious, but strangely cold. It seemed more like a museum than a home where children lived. "And where are the boys now?" Sarah asked as she organized her cleaning products. "In their room on the 2nd floor," Martha replied. "They spend most of their time there. They rarely come down, except for meals. You can start by cleaning the living room. They probably won't even notice your presence." But Martha was wrong. As Sarah began to vacuum the Persian rug in the living room, small bare feet came down the marble stairs. Luke and Liam appeared at the entrance to the living room wearing identical navy blue pajamas. They were absolutely identical. Curly brown hair, green eyes like their father's, but with a heartbreaking expression of sadness. Sarah turned off the vacuum cleaner when she saw them. "Hi, dears," she said softly, crouching down to their level. "I'm Sarah. I've come to help take care of your house." The boys watched her in silence, but there was something different in their eyes, a curiosity they hadn't shown in a long time. Sarah smiled and went back to work, quietly humming a lullaby she used to sing to the baby in her womb. It was a sweet, almost whispered melody that spoke of angels who watch over children while they sleep. Luke took a step forward, then another. Liam followed him. They sat on the sofa, watching her every move. She carefully cleaned the furniture, talking to herself as if they were old friends. "Wow, what a beautiful house you have. I bet it's a lot of fun to play here. Do you like puzzles? I loved them when I was little." As she spoke, something extraordinary began to happen. Luke, who hadn't shown interest in anything for 3 years, got up from the sofa and walked over to where Sarah was cleaning a coffee table. He picked up a cloth that had fallen and handed it to her. Sarah took the cloth with a radiant smile. "Thank you, Luke," she said. "You're very kind." The boy's eyes widened. How did she know his name? Martha had told her, but to Luke, it was as if she had known him forever. Liam also got up and started following Sarah around the room. When she went to the bookshelf to clean the books, he ran over and pointed to a fairy tale book. "Oh, you like stories?" Sarah asked, picking up the book. "This was my favorite too." She almost mentioned her husband, but stopped herself. This moment was about them. Sarah sat on the floor and opened the book. The twins immediately approached, sitting on either side of her. She began to tell the story of Beauty and the Beast, using different voices for each character and making dramatic gestures that drew the boys' first genuine smiles in 3 years. When she got to the part where the Beast turns into a prince because someone truly managed to love him, Luke rested his head on Sarah's arm. Liam did the same on the other side, and then the miracle happened. Liam, looking at Sarah with eyes full of tears he hadn't shed in years, whispered a word that echoed through the silent room like thunder. "Mommy!" Sarah's heart stopped. Luke, seeing his brother's reaction, repeated the word louder. "Mommy! Did you come back, Mommy?" In the 2nd floor office, Robert Anderson was on a video conference when he heard something that made him drop the phone. Voices, Children's voices, his sons' voices. He ran down the stairs like a madman, following the sound he hadn't heard in 3 years. When he reached the living room, he found the most beautiful and devastating scene of his life. His sons were talking, they were crying, they were alive again. And it was all because of a simple woman sitting on the floor who was hugging them as if they were the children she never had the chance to raise. Robert stood still at the entrance of the room, fearing that any movement could break the spell of that impossible moment. His legs trembled, not with fear, but with an emotion so intense it threatened to completely overwhelm him. For 3 years he had dreamed of this moment. He had imagined what it would be like to hear his sons' voices again, but in his imagination they would run to him, shouting, "Daddy!" Instead, they were calling a stranger, "Mommy," and strangely, that didn't hurt him. It was as if his paternal instincts recognized that this woman had achieved something that all his fortune had not provided. Sarah looked up and saw him standing there, tears streaming down his face. She immediately tried to get up, embarrassed, but Luke and Liam clung to her tightly. "Please," Robert said, his voice choked. "Don't stop. They're talking." "Daddy!" Luke shouted, running to Robert. "Sarah came back! Mommy came back to take care of us!" Robert knelt and hugged his son, feeling the small body tremble with emotion. Liam also ran to him, but didn't let go of Sarah's hand. "Daddy, did you bring her back?" Liam asked, his eyes shining with hope. "She was singing the song Mommy used to sing." Robert looked at Sarah, who was clearly confused and emotional. She had no idea the impact she had had on that family. "Sarah," he said, trying to control his voice, "I don't know how to thank you. For 3 years, dozens of professionals tried, and you, on your first day, I don't understand, Sarah. They called me Mommy," she whispered. I just did what I felt I should do." Luke pulled Sarah by the hand, leading her to Robert. "Daddy, is she going to live here with us? Is she going to be our new Mommy?" The innocent question created an uncomfortable silence. Robert didn't know how to explain the complex feelings of adults to 5-year-old children. Sarah turned red, not knowing what to say. "Boys," Robert began carefully, "Sarah works here. She came to help, take care of the house." "But she sings just like Mommy," Liam insisted. "And she smells the same," he added. Sarah frowned. "What do you mean she smells the same?" "Mommy smelled like flowers and kindness," Luke explained with a child's simple logic. "You do too." Robert realized that something much deeper was happening here. In the following days, he began to watch the interactions between Sarah and the boys with growing fascination. It was as if she had an intuitive connection with them that went beyond rational explanation. Every morning, even before she arrived, Luke and Liam would position themselves at the living room window, waiting to see her cross the garden. When she appeared, they would run down the stairs to greet her at the door. All the while she worked, they followed her, talking incessantly about everything and nothing. "Sarah, can you build a sandcastle? Sarah, do you like strawberry ice cream? Sarah, are you leaving when it gets dark?" This last question was always filled with anxiety. Sarah learned to reassure them, explaining that she would return the next day, that she would always come back. Robert began working from home more frequently, officially to monitor his son's progress, but secretly because he wanted to observe Sarah. There was something about her that deeply intrigued him. She was beautiful, yes, but not in an obvious way. It was the serene beauty of someone who knew pain and had learned to live with it without becoming bitter. She treated his sons with a maternal naturalness that moved him. There was no hesitation in her gestures, no forced attempt to win them over. It was as if she had always been a part of that family. One afternoon, Robert found her in the garden with the boys. They had set up a kind of picnic on the grass, using an old sheet and snacks she had prepared in the kitchen. Luke and Liam were laughing at something she had said, a sound Robert thought he would never hear again. "Can I join you?" he asked. Of course, Daddy," Liam replied. Sarah was telling us about when she was little and lived in a house with a yard full of chickens. Robert sat on the sheet, noticing how Sarah became a little tense with his presence. She still maintained a respectful distance, always remembering she was just an employee. "Sarah," he said softly, "I want you to know that you've transformed this house. My sons are alive again because of you." She lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "They are special children," she said. "They just needed someone who understood their silence." "And you understand?" he asked. Sarah looked at Luke and Liam, who were playing with small flowers they had picked. "I was also silent for a long time," she admitted. "When we lose someone we love, sometimes the words just disappear. They just needed time and someone who wasn't in a hurry to hear them." Robert felt something stir in his chest. It was more than gratitude, it was recognition. Sarah had healed his sons by healing herself. That night, after Sarah had left, the twins did something they hadn't done in 3 years. They asked Robert to tell them a bedtime story. "Daddy," Luke said, nestled in his bed, "is Sarah always going to be our friend?" "I hope so, son." "Liam dreamed she was our real mommy," Luke confided. "I had that dream too." Robert's heart ached. "And would you like her to be?" he asked. The 2 boys nodded vigorously. "Then she would be the mommy who takes care of us, and our first mommy would be the angel who protects her too," Liam explained with a child's simple wisdom. Robert kissed his sons' foreheads, knowing that this conversation would change everything, because he himself was beginning to harbor the same impossible dream as they were. Sarah Johnson had arrived as an employee, but she was becoming the heart of that family. And Robert was falling in love, not just with her, but with the extraordinary woman who had brought his sons back to life, and without knowing it, was bringing him back to life as well. 3 months had passed since Sarah's arrival, and the transformation in the Anderson family was impossible to ignore. Luke and Liam not only started talking again, they became the most communicative children Robert had ever known. They told elaborate stories about their drawings, asked tireless questions about everything they saw, and laughed out loud during games. The house, which had echoed only with silence for years, now vibrated with childish energy. Robert began inventing excuses to stay home longer. Meetings that could have been by phone became video conferences in his home office. Business trips were cancelled or postponed. He wanted to be present, to witness every moment of this family's resurrection. And it wasn't just the children who drew him home, it was Sarah. Watching her had become his favorite secret pastime. The delicate way she folded the boys' clothes, humming softly. How her eyes sparkled when Luke and Liam ran to hug her every day. The way she smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her entire face when the children told her their imaginary adventures. Robert realized he was falling in love the day he found her crying in the garden. It was a Saturday afternoon. The boys were napping after a hearty lunch, and Sarah was taking the opportunity to water the plants. Robert left his office to find her, wanting to invite her to dinner with them, to break the formality that still existed between boss and employee. But when he saw her sitting on the stone bench near the rose bushes, with tears silently streaming down her face, his chest ached in a way he hadn't experienced in years. "Sarah, what's wrong?" he asked. She was startled, quickly wiping away her tears. "I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson, I shouldn't be here, and I just—" "Please," he said, sitting beside her. "Just call me Robert, and you can be wherever you want. This house is yours too." Sarah looked at him in surprise. "I'm just the employee." "No," Robert interrupted, softly. "You're much more than that. You're the person who brought my sons back to life. You're too important to be just an employee." They were silent for a moment. Sarah fiddled with her hands, clearly fighting some internal feeling. "Today is my husband's birthday," she finally confessed. "He would have been 30 today, and our baby, our little girl, would have been 2 next week." Robert felt as if someone had pierced his heart. "Sarah, I didn't know," he said. "I'm so sorry. For 2 years, This day was unbearable, she said. I would stay in bed, unable to function, but today, she looked up at him. Today I was able to get up because I knew Luke and Liam were waiting for me. They gave me a reason to keep living. And they brought you to us exactly when we needed you, Robert replied. Don't you think that's more than a coincidence? Sarah stared at him with an intensity that made him forget to breathe. Robert, I need to tell you something, she said. I love your own children as if they were my own. I know I don't have the right. I know I'm just... You have every right, he said, gently taking her hands. They love you too. And I... Robert stopped, realizing he was about to confess something that would change everything. And you, Sarah, he whispered. I love you too, he said, surprising himself with the brutal sincerity. As a woman, as the mother of my children, as the person who saved us from a lifetime of silence. Sarah began to cry again, but now they were tears of relief. I thought I was crazy for feeling this way, she said. I thought I was betraying my husband's memory by falling in love again. Robert pulled her closer. Loving again doesn't betray the ones we've lost, he said. It honors the capacity they gave us to love. They were about to kiss when a chilling voice cut the moment like a blade. Robert, what is the meaning of this? Catherine Anderson, Robert's mother, stood at the garden entrance with an expression of horror and indignation. At 60, she was an imposing woman, accustomed to controlling all aspects of the family's life with an iron fist. Robert and Sarah quickly pulled apart, but it was too late. Mother, I can explain, he said. Explain? Catherine approached with furious steps. Explain how my son is behaving like a teenager with an employee. Mrs. Anderson, Sarah began, rising respectfully. I understand your concern, but you don't understand anything. Catherine cut her off coldly. You're a user who infiltrated this family, taking advantage of the children's vulnerability. Mother, Robert stood up furiously. You can't talk to Sarah like that. I can and I will, she retorted. You've lost your mind, Robert. This woman appeared out of nowhere, won your children over, and now she's manipulating you too. She wants your money, obviously. Sarah's face paled as if she had been slapped. I never, ever thought about Robert's money. Of course not, Catherine laughed. Bitterly. What a coincidence that a debt-ridden widow would fall in love with a millionaire widower. How romantic. Enough, Robert yelled. Sarah, go inside. I need to talk to my mother. But the damage was done. Sarah's face was burning with humiliation, and tears of pain streamed down her face uncontrollably. Maybe your mother is right, she whispered. Maybe I was deluding myself into thinking I deserved a family again. She ran inside the house, grabbed her things, and left, ignoring the cries of Luke and Liam who were calling her from the window. Robert confronted his mother with a fury she had never seen before. You have no idea what you just did, he said in a dangerously low voice. I saved you from making the biggest mistake of your life. No, Robert replied. You just caused the biggest mistake of my life. Sarah is the woman I love and the mother my children chose, and you drove her out of our house with your cruel accusations. But it was too late. Sarah had already disappeared down the street, carrying her broken heart and shattered dignity. And inside the house, Luke and Liam began to scream for her, not understanding why the woman they considered their mother had suddenly left. The silence returned to the Anderson mansion, but this time it was an even more devastating silence, because now they knew exactly what they had lost. The first night without Sarah was a nightmare. Luke and Liam refused to eat dinner, cried until they fell asleep exhausted, and woke up several times asking when she would return. Robert spent the entire night trying to explain concepts to 5-year-old children that he himself couldn't comprehend. How pride and prejudice could destroy an entire family's happiness. Daddy, does Sarah not like us anymore? Luke asked for the 10th time, his eyes red from crying. She does, son. Very much. Then why did she leave? Robert didn't know how to answer. How could he explain that his own mother had mortally wounded the woman they loved? On the second day, the boys went on strike. They refused to eat anything that wasn't prepared by Sarah. They didn't want anyone else to bathe them or tell them stories. They sat at the living room window, waiting to see her appear in the garden. Robert tried to call her dozens of times, but her phone went straight to voicemail. He went to the address he had on her file, but neighbors said she had left early with a small suitcase and hadn't returned. "My God," Robert murmured to himself. "She's moved. She's fled from us." On the third day, the situation became critical. Luke and Liam completely stopped eating, drinking only water and spending the entire day crying for Mommy Sarah. Dr. Thomas Collins came to examine them and gave a devastating verdict. "Robert, they are entering a state of severe childhood depression," the doctor said. "If we don't resolve this quickly, there could be serious physical consequences. Where is the woman they are calling for?" "She left." "Then you need to bring her back immediately." It was at that moment that Robert discovered the extent of his mother's betrayal. While rummaging through his office papers, looking for a clue about Sarah's whereabouts, he found a private investigation report on his desk, a complete dossier on Sarah, including work records and even details about her husband's death. Catherine had hired detectives to investigate Sarah since her first month of work. Robert read the report with growing horror. Sarah's debts were real, but all related to her husband's medical treatments before his death and funeral costs. She had sold her house, her furniture, even her wedding ring to pay off the debts. Her previous jobs had glowing references, with employers describing her as honest, dedicated, and a family person. At the end of the report, there was a handwritten note from the investigator. "Subject has an upright character. Financial motivation is unlikely given a history of ethical behavior. Recommendation: unnecessary investigation." Robert felt sick to his stomach. His mother had commissioned a complete dossier on an innocent woman to destroy her with unfounded accusations. He confronted Catherine that same afternoon. "How could you do this?" he asked. "How could you investigate Sarah in secret?" "I protected my family," Catherine said impassively. "This woman was a risk." "A risk of what? Of giving us love? Of healing my children? Of making me happy again?" he shouted. "A risk of being a gold digger. Don't you see she planned everything? She won the children over first to get to you." Robert threw the report on the table with force. "Did you read this? Did you read what your own detectives concluded? Sarah is a woman of integrity who lost everything in her life and was rebuilding her dignity through honest work." "Robert, you're blind!" she shouted. "No!" he screamed. "You're the one who's blind, blinded by your prejudice, by your snobbery. Your grandchildren are literally dying of sadness, refusing to eat, and you still think you did the right thing." As if summoned by his words, Luke and Liam's cries echoed from upstairs. They had woken up from another nightmare, calling for Sarah. Robert ran upstairs to console them and found a scene that broke him in half. The twins were hugging each other in bed, crying desperately. "Daddy," Luke sobbed. "Did Sarah die like Mommy?" "No, son, she didn't die." "Then why doesn't she come back? Did we do something wrong?" Liam asked. Robert sat on the bed and hugged the two boys. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "Nothing. Grandma Catherine said bad things to Sarah, and she got very sad." "Is Grandma bad?" Luke asked with brutal sincerity. Robert chose his words carefully. "Grandma loves you, but sometimes adults do the wrong things when they're afraid," he said. "Afraid of what?" Liam asked. "Afraid of losing the people they love." Liam thought for a moment. "But Sarah wasn't going to take you away from us, Daddy," he said. "She was going to stay with all of us." The children's simple wisdom hit Robert like a lightning bolt. They had understood something that his mother, with all her education and life experience, couldn't see. True love multiplies. It doesn't divide. On the fourth day without Sarah, Robert received a call that changed everything. "Mr. Anderson, this is the hospital," a voice said. "One of our patients, Sarah Johnson, has you listed as an emergency contact. She was admitted last night in serious condition." Robert felt the world collapse. "What happened to her?" he asked. "She collapsed on the street and was brought in by paramedics," the person explained. "She was severely dehydrated and showing signs of acute depression. When we asked about family to contact, she only whispered your name." Robert didn't wait to hear more. He rushed to the hospital, leaving the boys with the nanny and Catherine. Throughout the journey, his mind was bombarded with terrible thoughts. What if she died? What if he lost the only woman he had loved after Isabella? How would he explain that to Luke and Liam? He found Sarah admitted to the psychiatric ward, medicated and still unconscious. Her face was pale, too thin, and she had deep, dark circles under her eyes that revealed nights without sleep. Dr. Frank Viana, the psychiatrist in charge, explained the situation. "Mr. Anderson, Sarah arrived here in a state of emotional collapse," he said. "According to her, she recently lost not only a job but also people she considered family. Added to the previous trauma of losing her husband and child, it was too much for her psychological structure to bear. Will she be okay physically?" "Yes," he replied. "Emotionally? That depends," Dr. Viana said. "She needs a strong reason to fight, something or someone to make her want to live again." Robert held Sarah's cold hand. "She has them," he said. "She has my sons, and she has me. We love her." "Then why is she here?" the doctor asked. Robert told the whole story to the doctor, feeling shame burn his face with every word. Dr. Viana listened in silence, shaking his head in disapproval. "Mr. Anderson, I've seen cases like this before," he said. "When a person who has already lost everything is rejected again by the people they love, it can be devastating. Sarah told me she feels cursed, that everything she touches ends up being destroyed." Robert buried his face in his hands. "I allowed this to happen," he said. "I didn't defend her. Enough. You can still correct this, but you need to act fast," the doctor said. "Sarah is considering leaving the city, starting over somewhere where no one knows her." At that moment, Sarah began to wake up. Her eyes opened slowly, focusing with difficulty. When she saw Robert beside the bed, her first reaction was to try to pull away. "No," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here. Your mother was right. I'm just a cleaning lady who deluded herself into thinking she could be part of a family. Like yours." Robert took her face in his hands. "You were right from the beginning," he said. "You are part of our family. The most important part." "Luke and Liam," she began to cry. "They must be confused, hurt. They are dying without you, Sarah," he said. "They've literally stopped eating, playing, living. They call you mommy because that's what you are to them." Sarah closed her eyes, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "I can't go back," she said. "Not after what your mother said. I can't live being seen as a gold digger, as someone who took advantage of your pain." Robert took the investigation report from his briefcase. "Then look at this," he said. "My mother hired detectives to investigate you. Do you know what they discovered? That you are exactly who I thought you were, a woman of integrity, honest, who went through unimaginable tragedies and still maintained a heart capable of loving." Sarah read the report with an expression of disbelief. "She investigated me and still continued with the accusations?" she asked. "Because it wasn't about you, Sarah," he said. "It was about her fear of losing control over my life." Sarah tried to sit up in the bed, still weak. "Robert, I can't be the cause of problems between you and your family." "You're not the cause," he said. "You're the solution. You brought life back to our house. Luke and Liam need you. I need you." Robert knelt beside the hospital bed. "Sarah Johnson, will you marry me?" he asked. "Not because you need me, not because I have money, but because we love each other, and because together we can give our children the family they deserve." Sarah looked at him through her tears, seeing not the millionaire Robert Anderson, but the man who had lost his wife, who was raising 2 traumatized boys alone, who was willing to face his own family for love. "And Luke and Liam?" she asked. "They're home waiting for mommy to come back." It was that word, mommy, that broke all of Sarah's resistance, because she had been born to be a mother, and destiny had placed two children who desperately needed her love in her path. "Yes," she whispered, "I accept." When Robert kissed her there in that hospital room, they both knew they were sealing not just a commitment between them, but a promise to Luke and Liam. They would never again be orphans of love. Robert spent the entire night at the hospital beside Sarah, holding her hand while she slept with the help of sedatives. For the first time in days, he himself was able to rest, knowing he had found her and that she had accepted his proposal. But a constant worry hammered in his mind. How were Luke and Liam? The answer came at 6 a.m. through a desperate call from the nanny. "Mr. Anderson, please come home urgently," she said. "The children have been crying all night. They haven't eaten in 4 days, and now they have a fever. Mrs. Catherine tried to give them porridge, but Luke threw it all up, and Liam is delirious, calling for Sarah." Robert felt panic take over his chest. "Call Dr. Collins immediately," he said. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He kissed Sarah gently. "My love, I have to go get our children." Sarah woke up immediately. "Our children, are they okay?" "They will be when they see you." Robert ran home as if his life depended on it, and in a way it did. He found the mansion in complete chaos. Luke was lying on the living room sofa, pale and apathetic, while Liam cried convulsively in the nanny's lap. Dr. Collins had just arrived and was examining the children with a grave expression. "Robert," the doctor said somberly, "they are in a critical state of malnutrition and dehydration. They need to be hospitalized immediately." "No," Robert said firmly. "They need Sarah. I'm going to get her now." "Robert, be sensible," the doctor said. "These children could die." "They will die if we don't bring Sarah back," Robert insisted. "Doctor, you yourself said their trauma was emotional. The cure also needs to be emotional." Luke lifted his weak head when he heard the conversation. "Daddy, did you find Sarah?" he asked. Robert knelt beside his son. "I found her, my love," he said. "She's coming home. She's going to stay forever." Liam stopped crying instantly. "Is Mommy Sarah really coming back?" he asked. "Yes," Robert said, "and she's never going to leave again." Robert looked at Catherine, who was watching the scene with a complex expression, a mixture of guilt, fear, and stubbornness. "Mother, I'm going to get Sarah now," he said. "When I come back with her, you can stay and be part of this family the way it will be, or you can leave, but you will never disrespect her in my presence again." Catherine started to protest, but Luke interrupted her with a weak but determined voice. "Grandma, you hurt our mommy," he said. "That was mean." "Luke, dear, you have to understand," she began. "No." Liam joined his brother, still crying. "You made Mommy Sarah cry. Now we're crying too." Robert left the house, leaving Catherine to face the most honest judgment she had ever received, that of two children who had learned the difference between true love and destructive pride. When Robert returned to the hospital, Sarah was awake and wearing the clothes he had brought, a simple but beautiful dress that highlighted her natural beauty. "Ready to go home?" he asked. "Robert, what if they don't forgive me for leaving?" she asked. "Sarah, you still don't understand, do you?" he said. "You didn't leave. You were forced out. They know the difference." During the drive home, Robert told her about the children's condition. Sarah cried, blaming herself for causing so much suffering. "I should have been stronger," she said. "I should have faced your mother." "You were forced into an impossible situation," he said. "Anyone would have reacted the way you did." When the car stopped in front of the mansion, Sarah hesitated. "Robert, I'm scared." "Of what?" he asked. "That this is all a dream," she said. "That I'll wake up alone in my empty apartment." Robert took her face in his hands. "Sarah, look at me," he said. "You are the woman I love. You are the mother my children chose. You are real. Our love is real, and our family will be real." They entered through the main door, no longer through the back entrance, as when Sarah was just an employee. The symbolic difference did not go unnoticed by her. In the living room, Luke and Liam were lying on the sofa, too weak to get up quickly. But their eyes lit up like two stars when they saw Sarah. "Mommy, Sarah!" Luke shouted with all the strength he could muster. Sarah ran to them, falling to her knees beside the sofa and hugging the two boys simultaneously. The three of them cried together, tears of relief, happiness, and reunion. "My babies," Sarah whispered, kissing their thin faces. "Mommy is back. Mommy is never leaving again." "You promise?" Liam asked, clinging to her as if he feared she would disappear again. "I promise," she said. "Look." Sarah showed them the simple engagement ring Robert had bought at the hospital. "Daddy asked me to marry him. I'm going to be your mommy, officially." Luke and Liam looked at each other with an expression of pure joy. "Does that mean you're going to sleep here every night?" Luke asked. "Every night? And you're going to make breakfast for us every day?" Liam added. "Every day. And what if Grandma Catherine is mean to you again?" Sarah looked over her shoulder and saw Catherine standing at the living room entrance, watching the scene with tears in her eyes. "Grandma Catherine loves you," Sarah said diplomatically. "Sometimes adults do the wrong things when they're afraid of losing the people they love." Catherine approached slowly. Her haughty posture had completely disappeared, replaced by what looked like genuine repentance. "Sarah," she said, her voice choked, I need to apologize. My grandson is right. I was mean to you." Sarah got up, still holding the boy's hands. "Mrs. Anderson, please," Catherine interrupted her. "Call me Grandma Catherine, and please forgive me. I saw my grandchildren almost die of sadness these 4 days, and I realized that you are not a threat to our family. You are our family." Sarah extended her hand to her. "Grandma Catherine, I never wanted to replace the memory of their mother," she said. "I just want to love them. I know that now, and I know that Isabella would approve of our choice," Catherine said. Robert watched the scene with a heart overflowing. Dr. Collins, who had remained discreetly in the corner of the room, approached to examine the children again. "It's impressive," he murmured to Robert. "Their temperature is returning to normal. Their breathing is stabilizing. In 20 years of medicine, I've never seen such an immediate recovery." "Doctor," Luke called out, "now that Mommy Sarah is back, can I eat something? I'm so hungry." Dr. Collins smiled. "I think so, champ." Sarah went to the kitchen to prepare something light for the boys, followed by the entire family. As she heated soup and toasted bread, she hummed the same lullaby she had sung on her first day of work. Luke and Liam sat at the kitchen table, watching her every move, as if they wanted to engrave that moment forever. "Mommy Sarah," Liam said, "when you left, I dreamed you had turned into an angel, just like our first mommy, but you didn't become an angel." Luke completed the thought. "You came back to take care of us." Sarah turned to them with eyes full of tears. "Boys, you saved my life as much as I saved yours," she said. "I was so sad and lonely, and you gave me a reason to be happy again, just like you did with us," Luke observed with a child's wisdom. Robert hugged Sarah from behind as she served the soup. "Our children are very smart," he said. "Our children," Sarah repeated, savoring the words. "I like the sound of that." Catherine watched it all from a corner of the kitchen, realizing something her stubbornness had almost destroyed. That simple woman had created more love, joy, and unity in that family in just a few months than years of wealth and social status had managed. That night, for the first time in 4 days, Luke and Liam ate a full meal, bathed without resistance, and slept peacefully in their beds. And for the first time in 3 years, the Anderson family was complete again. 2 years had completely transformed the Anderson mansion. The house that was once a silent mausoleum now pulsed with life, laughter, and the contagious energy of a truly happy family. Luke and Liam, now 7, were known at school as the most communicative and loving children in their class. Teachers commented on how they spoke affectionately about Mommy Sarah and how proud they were of the family they had. The trauma of the past had been replaced by a solid emotional security, built on the unconditional love they received daily. Sarah blossomed in ways she never thought possible. The face that had arrived thin and marked by sadness now radiated a serene happiness. She had become not only a wife and mother, but also Robert's partner in business, bringing a human and sensitive perspective that revolutionized the culture of the Anderson Corporation. Employees commented on how her presence had humanized the work environment, but the most visible miracle of all was growing in her womb. "Mommy Sarah," Luke said one sunny Saturday morning, carefully placing his hand on her belly. "Our little sister is kicking a lot today. She wants to be born soon to play with you," Sarah replied, caressing the boy's hair. "Are we going to teach her everything?" Liam declared solemnly. "Like how to ride a bike, how to swim, how to build a sandcastle. And we're going to protect her from any bad person," Luke added with the seriousness of someone who had learned early about life's difficulties. Robert watched the scene from the balcony, his chest bursting with gratitude. In his arms, he held an envelope that had arrived that morning, the official invitation to the religious wedding ceremony that would take place that afternoon. After 2 years of civil union, Sarah had insisted on a church celebration, wanting to officially bless the family they had built together. "Daddy," Luke ran to him, "are you nervous about marrying Mommy again?" Robert laughed. "A little," he said. "It's important to properly marry the woman of our lives." "But you're already married," Liam observed, confused. "On paper, yes," Robert said, "but today we are going to promise before God that we will love each other forever. Like you promised our first mommy?" The question could have been painful, but Robert had learned to deal with Isabella's memory in a healthy way, especially with Sarah's help. "Similar, yes," he said, "but every love is unique, Liam. I loved your first mommy in a special way, and now I love Mommy Sarah in another special way. And is there room in your heart for both loves?" Luke asked. "The heart grows when it needs to love more people," Robert said, "just like your hearts grew to love Mommy Sarah without diminishing the love for your first mommy." The children nodded, perfectly understanding the emotional logic that many adults struggle to accept. Catherine appeared on the balcony, carrying Sarah's dress on a protective hanger. "The dress is perfect," she announced with satisfaction. "Sarah is going to be beautiful." The relationship between Catherine and Sarah had become one of the most pleasant surprises of those 2 years. After her initial apology, Catherine had genuinely made an effort to get to know Sarah as a person, not as a threat. She discovered a cultured, intelligent, and surprisingly wise woman about business. After all, Sarah had helped her late husband run a small business before the tragedy. More than that, Catherine realized that Sarah treated Luke and Liam not as stepchildren, but as children of her heart. She never tried to erase Isabella's memory. On the contrary, she encouraged the boys to remember their first mother fondly while building new memories with her. "Grandma Catherine," Liam ran to her, "are you going to cry at the wedding like the grandmas in the movies?" "Probably," she admitted, smiling, "but there'll be happy tears." The morning passed quickly with preparations. Sarah was radiant in her simple but elegant dress, chosen to comfortably accommodate her 6-month pregnancy. Luke and Liam wore small identical suits, proud of their role as men of honor that Robert had created especially for them. The church was decorated with white and yellow flowers, Sarah's favorites. The guests were few but significant. Close family, some company employees who had become friends, neighbors who had followed the transformation of the Anderson family. Dr. Thomas Collins was present, still impressed with the twins' complete recovery. Martha, the secretary, cried discreetly in the front pew. Even some colleagues from when Sarah worked as a cleaning lady had been invited, showing that Robert valued her entire history, not just her successful present. When it was time for personal vows, Robert held Sarah's hands before the altar and spoke with a choked voice. Sarah, you came into our lives disguised as an employee, but you were an angel sent to heal us, he said. You gave my sons back their voices, you gave my house back its joy, and you gave my heart back its ability to love. I promise to honor not only the extraordinary woman you are today, but also the courageous woman who faced all her losses and still kept her heart open to love again. Sarah wiped away her tears before replying. Robert, you gave me the family I thought I would never have again, she said. Luke and Liam taught me that being a mother doesn't depend on giving birth to a child, but on loving them unconditionally. I promise to be the wife you deserve and the mother our children need for every day of my life. But the most moving moment of the ceremony came when the priest invited Luke and Liam to approach the altar. Boys, the priest said softly, would you like to say something to your parents? Luke and Liam looked at each other. Then Luke spoke with the impressive maturity of a child who had grown up too fast. Mommy Sarah, he said, when you came to our house, our hearts were broken like glass. We couldn't speak because sadness had stolen our words, but you came singing and taught us that it was safe to talk again because you would listen with kindness. Liam continued, you never tried to make us forget our first mommy. You said she turned into a star that protects our family, and now we have a mommy in heaven and a mommy here on earth. That makes us very lucky. Luke concluded, Daddy, thank you for not giving up on us when we were sad, and thank you for choosing Mommy Sarah to be our real mom. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. Even Catherine cried openly, remembering how she had almost destroyed that family out of pride. When the priest finally pronounced Robert and Sarah husband and wife, Luke and Liam shouted, Hooray! So loudly that they made the entire congregation laugh through their tears. At the reception held in the mansion's garden, Little Hope, the name chosen by the twins themselves, decided to make her appearance. Sarah began to feel the first contractions during the waltz with Robert. I think our daughter wants to join the wedding party, she whispered in her husband's ear. 3 hours later at the hospital, Hope Anderson was born into the arms of a complete and happy family. Luke and Liam were the first to see her, immediately declaring her the most beautiful little sister in the whole world. Robert held his newborn daughter, looked at Sarah, who was exhausted but radiant, saw Luke and Liam arguing over who would teach the baby what first, and realized he had found something that all his wealth couldn't buy, the imperfect perfection of a true family. She's going to grow up knowing she was wanted by 4 hearts, Sarah murmured, watching her older children gently caress their sister's face. 5, Robert corrected, thinking of Isabella. I'm sure the first mommy is also happy today. Luke looked up as if he could see through the hospital ceiling. First mommy, he said to the sky. Thank you so much for sending Mommy Sarah to take care of us. You chose very well. At that moment, a gentle breeze came through the window of the room, moving the curtains in a way that seemed almost like a nod of approval. The Anderson family had learned the most important lesson in life, that true love doesn't replace losses, but creates new possibilities. That sometimes the right people arrive disguised as simple employees, and that the most beautiful miracles happen when broken hearts allow themselves to love again. Luke, Liam, and Hope would grow up knowing that family is not defined only by blood, but by love, dedication, and the willingness to heal together the wounds that life inevitably causes. And Sarah finally understood that she hadn't lost a daughter in the past. Destiny had only been saving her motherhood for the right moment, when 3 hearts orphaned of maternal love were waiting for her. The silence never returned to the mansion, and if it ever did, it would only be the sacred silence of a family sleeping in peace, knowing they would be woken by laughter, conversation, and the absolute certainty that love had won all the battles that mattered. And do you believe that there is an inexplicable connection between souls that need to heal each other? That true love can be more powerful than all the money in the world? Tell us your opinion in the comments. We want to know if this story touched your heart as much as it touched ours. If you were moved, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive our most emotional stories. And don't miss the next recommended video. A new story of overcoming awaits you.